Welcome to Spanish Tax Calculator. This is Juan Carlos Marrenda, lawyer, expert in property law, construction law, inheritance tax, and in general taxes in Spain. Today we will talk about some articles included in this site and also the way in which this site considers the way to calculate Spanish taxes. Today we will talk about Spanish income tax for non-residents. The Spanish income tax in Spain is divided into sections. One is for residents and the other one is for non-residents. Talking now about non-residents, the concept of non-resident is companies and or individuals who operate without a permanent establishment in Spain. So considering companies, a non-resident company in Spain, it will be considered foreign registered companies that are acting in Spain, making business or getting some transactions, participating in transactions where they are registered in the country of origin and not in Spain. Talking about individuals, we are talking about residents in another country which for some reason they are operating in the Spanish system. The most typical case is the foreigners who have properties in Spain as a secondary residence that they use as vacations or sometimes also as a source of incomes, for example, renting. So the Spanish income tax for non-residents is in Spain is also known in some other countries as inland revenue. In Spain is called IRPF, Impuesto de la Renta de las Personas Físicas. And so today we will explain to you how it works. The tax base. The tax base is the full amount of incomes which are generated in Spanish territory. There are several special rules, and one of the things that we will consider here is the imputed incomes. So purely, the income tax for non-residents taxes whatever incomes or earnings that are received by non-residents from the Spanish territory. But this income tax for non-residents is divided in two sections. Talking about incomes, there are incomes called imputed incomes and other incomes which are obtained by rent from Spanish properties. We will explain you the difficult concept now of the imputed incomes. Imputed incomes are those that the Spanish system considers that a non-resident owner of a property in Spain obtains in Spain even if the property has not been rented. For example, a case in which a British or German or French national or resident buys a house in Spain for vacation and the property is not rented during all the year. The Spanish system considers that even if the property has not been submitted to an economical activity, for example, to rent, this property has generated a minimum of incomes for the owner. These incomes or the amount of these incomes are calculated in a special way by the Spanish system, which is the 2% of the cadastral value of the property. So, for example, imagine that you have a house in Spain. You are not resident. The value of the cadastral value of this house is 60,000 euros. You don't use at all during the year this property, and the Spanish system, even that the property has not been rented, then the Spanish system will consider that you will have an income of 2% of the cadastral value. So there is a popular misconception about this tax in Spain, in which a lot of people, they think that they don't have to declare taxes in Spain, being non-residents, because they are not receiving any incomes. This is a mistake, because as we are saying in this report, even that there is no incomes generated by rent, it doesn't mean that the Spanish system doesn't allow you to get to don't declare a minimum of incomes that, as we say, obligatorily must be presented every year with an amount of tax of or an amount of income of 2% of the cadastral value. Where can you obtain the cadastral value of your property? Well, every year you should be, as owner of a property in Spain, you should be receiving a bill like this, which is the council tax, in which in the details of the content of the bill, it is clearly established the valor cadastral, which is the cadastral value with an amount here. This will be the cadastral value of the property. So talking back to the imputed incomes, if, for example, this value is 60,000 euros, then the Spanish system considers that you have obtained 2% of that cadastral value, even if the property has not obtained any kind of incomes for rents during the year. Please take this into account. So it is, you will see later on this explanation, that you will have the obligation, the formal obligation for every year to present taxes for these incomes, which are generated as an imputed income from the Spanish system. Together with the imputed incomes, there are the normal incomes, which are incomes obtained by rent from Spanish properties. Well, this is 2 times easy to understand as the imputed incomes, because this is the typical income that you receive when you rent a property in Spain. This you will see later. There are 2 tax rates depending on you are resident or non-resident in the European countries, and there are some specifications also being resident or non-resident in one of those countries, in EU countries or out of EU. Which is a tax rate. So for imputed incomes, which are, I repeat, incomes, the 2% of the cadastral value for the time of the year, for the interval of time of the year in which the property has not been rented, or for the incomes obtained in those periods in which the property is rented, for the tax to apply is the 19% in case of residence in EU countries, plus Norway, plus Iceland, and 24% in the rest of the countries. So, also, you will see later, the difference from residents in EU and residents in the rest of the countries, USA, UK, Mexico, etc., is not only the difference in taxes between 19% and 24%. The difference is also while you are renting a property in Spain, EU residents, foreign non-residents in Spain, which are nationals or residents in one of the EU countries, will pay less taxes, 19% from 24%. And also, they will have the benefit to deduct the expenses that has been generated for the activity of rent of the property in Spain. For example, electric, water, community of owners, council tax, etc. These will be concepts that the EU residents, which are non-residents in Spain, which can deduct from the Spanish taxes. This will not be the case in case of non-EU residents. For example, an American is renting a property in Spain, from a citizen from the US is renting a house in Spain, and then he will be taxed with the 24% of the incomes received from the property, uh, and he will not be allowed to deduct the general expenses generated from the rental activity from the time of the declaration of the tax to pay. We will see right now with an example with the calculator. Talking about the formal obligations that as a Spanish non-resident you have to formalize in Spain. We have to divide or considering the difference between the imputed incomes and the incomes received uh, from rent. In case of income received as imputed, the you have the obligations to declare that income generated in the way that we have specified before, which is the 2% of the cadastral value multiplied by 19 in case of EU residents or 24 in case of non-residents. You have to declare those taxes the following year in which has been generated. For example, in case that the imputed tax, the imputed income has been generated in 2021, the declarations of taxes must be presented and paid before the end of the year 2022. So before the 31st of December 2022. In case that the property has generated any incomes, for example, for rent, then there is the obligation to declare the rent in the same quarter in which the income has been generated. In case that this income has been generated in the interval of time January-March, then the tax declaration must be presented and paid for these incomes before the 20th of April 2022, which is 20 days after the quarter is completed. But an important note, please pay attention that in case that the property is rented, then you have to present two declarations of taxes. The one for the imputed income for the time of that the property has not been generating incomes, that has been emptied or used as privately for the family of the owner, and the second one for the declaration of the rent obtained on that year. So in case, for example, in case that a house in the 2021 is not rented, and then in the year 2022 the house is rented 2 months in July and August, and the rest of the year is not renting in the year 2022, the formal obligations accrued by the owner of the property are the following. Before the 20th of October 2022, which is 20 days after the quarter in which the rent is generated, the owner has to present and pay the rent, the taxes for the rent generated in July-August. Before the end of the year, this owner has to present the yearly declaration of taxes for the imputed income generated in 2021, which is the one generated in the year before. And then the imputed income generated in the year 2022 must be presented the following year before the 31st of December 2023. I would like you to pay attention to this, because some people, they think, sometimes owners in Spain, they think that if they have paid the taxes for the rent that they have obtained renting the property, they forgot that they have to continue paying and declaring for the imputed tax, which is yes or not generated every year. Obviously, if the house is totally empty, is totally empty or used privately, not rented for the family, then the period of time that must be considered to tax the imputed income, it will be the whole year. And in case the property is rented, a part of the year will be considered in the declaration of taxes for the rent. In this case will be July and August, but for the rest of the year, then of the rest of the year 2022 will be included in the yearly declaration to be done the following year, 2023. It's small, it's a little confused, but I would like you to pay attention that when you are renting a property, then you have to pay, that you still have to declare the imputed tax for the time in which the property has not been rented. So obviously you have to keep all the invoices that support whatever deductions or documents to justify the origin of the funds, the taxes, incomes, etc. So you have to keep them at least for 4 years in order to prevent any kind of inspections or regular demand of information from the tax authorities in Spain. Once that we have explained the income tax system for non-residents, let's go for a calculation of that we have prepared in our simulator of Spanish income tax that we have divided for your comparison between EU residents and non-EU residents. Talking first about EU residents, we have included in our calculations up to 3 properties. For example, an apartment, a garage, which it doesn't form part from the apartment, and a second house that the owner could have in Spain. So imagine that right now you are the owner of an apartment in Spain, which is the 50% of the ownership, together with your spouse. The cadastral value will go to the cadastral bill, and we detect in the way in which you have seen before, we obtain that the property, the cadastral value is 60,000 euros. The apartment is rented for 100 days, and the total amount that we have obtained for the rent is 9,000 euros. But as you are the 50% of the owner of the property, this 9,000 euros goes only 4,500 for you. Also, garbage collection, the total bill for the whole year is 150. The total bill for the whole year of council tax is 600 euros. The community of owners is 100 euros per year, per month, so 1,200 per year. The house insurance, 400 per year. The consumption of the water and electric that you have during the year has been 3,000 euros, cleaning of the pool, gardening, security, etc. Please include here the full amount, because you will see later that we, in our calculator, we will prorate the consumption of these expenses, because these expenses will not deduct the income, the imputed income tax. It will not be considered for that. But these reductions will, these expenses will reduce the base of the tax in case of rent. And obviously, we will, our calculator, consider specifically these expenses, and they will prorate for the time in which the property is rented. An interesting point is the interest of mortgage. In case that you have obtained a mortgage from a Spanish bank, you have the option to deduct the interest that you have paid for this loan, for this mortgage during the year. Imagine that this is the case, and you have paid 900 euros in interest on the mortgage that you have obtained from a Spanish bank. In case that the bank is a foreign one, for example, a British or from German, etc., then this deduction cannot be used. Also, imagine that you have also paid 1,200 euros in repairing furniture and home appliances, for example, white goods or freezer or washing machine, etc. And also that you have paid professional expenses from a tax advisor who has cost you 400 euros per year to prepare your taxes. And also you have paid a commission to the real estate in order to pay for the services to rent your property of 500 euros. So in this case, we will use an amount of 900 that will also, it will be deducted from the base of the tax to pay in case of rent. Also, you have bought a new television, or a washing machine or air condition installed in the property, and this is the amount of that you can reduce from the rent that you obtain from the property. We have to say that we will prorate with amortizations, etc., and we will prorate during the time in which this electric and consumptions and expenses, etc., has been generated, and we obtain a maximum prorated deductible amount on the rental activity period. In this case, is 1,758, which is lower than the amount that you have obtained on the rental income of your property. You have obtained 4,500 euros, and then there are 1,758 expenses deductible. In case that, imagine that for some reason it has been a year in which you have spent a lot of money in all these concepts, then if this amount, if the amount of the expenses were higher than the amount of incomes received, 4,500. Imagine that you spend 5,000 euros, and then you only get 4,500 from the rent. The extra 500 euros that cannot be deducted from this year will be deducted in the following year. So you will have a credit of reduction of expenses in the following 4 years of the Spanish income tax for non-residents. So in this case, as the amount of expenses is lower than the amount obtained for rent, there is no excess deductible in the 4 following years. This is the rental tax that you will pay for income tax for the rent, and this is the imputed tax that you will pay, the famous 2% of the cadastral value multiplied for 19 in case for the time that the property has not been rented. So we go now to the second property. This is the calculation of the taxes for the property number 1. Imagine that this is an apartment, but together with the apartment, you own in Spain also a garage. The garage could be parking, which sometimes is linked and attached to the apartment. So in this case, is only one property, which is a house, in which there is a parking, which is included in the registration of the apartment. But sometimes the garage is considered as a second property, as well as if it was another apartment, with an independent cadastral value, with an independent cadastral reference, with an independent number of the land registry office, that you can even sell separately of the apartment. So okay, so this is the calculations of the taxes of income tax for non-residents, considering the apartment for the rental tax period, for the rental period that has been rented, and also the imputed tax for the time of the year in which the apartment has been not subjected to rent. So now we go for the garage. So in this case, we go further with the next step, and imagine that you own the garage 50%. The cadastral value we calculated, as I was explaining in a previous previously to this presentation, in the council tax bill. In this case, as the garage needs to have a separate council tax bill, then we go there and we discover that the value of the garage in the in the council tax bill, in the EB bill, is 20,000 euros. So we include it here. It's not rented, so you have considered not necessary to rent the garage together with the apartment for the time of the year in which the apartment was rented. So okay, all these concepts then makes no sense, because there was no rental activity. And then we go for the obviously, as there is no rental income, there is no rental tax, and obviously there will be imputed tax, because the garage has not been rented. Okay, and together with the garage, there is another property that you have in Spain, for example, with it is a shed. The shed, as well as the garages, it can be considered as a property, independent of the apartment. That could be could have an independent cadastral reference, an independent property number, and that it can be sold independently of the apartment. So imagine that you have a shed. So we go further with the third property, which is the garage that you own also 50%. This time we have discovered that the cadastral value for the shed is quite low, it's 6,000 euros. There is no rent, and then what you have is only the imputed income tax, which is 11.40. If we go straight away, we consider in our calculator we have made the addition from all the taxes, the imputed tax for the shed, the imputed tax for the garage, the rent tax for the rental period in which the property has been rented, and the imputed tax. All together makes the addition, and then you will know with this calculator exactly the amount that you will need to pay for having an apartment that in some part of the year has been rented, and together with the imputed incomes that you receive. And now we go for the same, but this time considering taxes, the income tax for non-resident when you are resident in another country outside EU, for example, USA, UK, Canada, Russia, etc. So in order to make a rapid comparison, we go with the property number one in order to rapidly see the differences between taxes in Spain being EU resident and being EU non-resident. So okay, so we go the 50% of an apartment. The cadastral value is 60,000. Number of days rented 100. Total amount rented per year is 9,000. So now you see the difference. First, you have noticed that all these concepts that were reducing the rental tax are not considered when the resident is outside EU. And also the consideration of the tax rate is not the 19%, it's the 24%. It's the same for the imputed tax, which is obviously is higher than the imputed tax for in case of this of non-residents. So taking this into account, yes, obviously we can continue with the calculator with property 2, property 3. You can play with this, you can make your calculations, and this is the way how it works, the income tax for non-residents calculator for Spanish tax calculator. Thank you very much for paying attention. We will see you soon in another video of tutorial. Thank you.